Alrighty, welcome back everybody to now the 22nd week of our Tech Bytes JavaScript session. Last week I did make a bit of a typo. Last week was our 21st week of our JavaScript session, and this week is the 22nd, aka the 5.5 month mark. Wow, it's been a while. Web development course, if you're coming back, welcome back to the 14th week, aka the 3.5 month. As always, glad to see you guys here joining us on a momentous day today. And without any further ado, let's get towards what we're doing today. As always, guys, if you don't already know who I am, my name is Rayon Sneaky. I am a senior at James B. Conner High School. I love to program, made multiple apps for the App Store, made a dozen different websites, many different frameworks and coding languages, and really like making content on the side, whether it be making some tech videos for my personal YouTube channel, writing articles, or running a sports talk show with some of my friends on YouTube called Buzzer to Buzzer, if you want to search that up. And if you want to learn what I've been up to for the past couple of days, past couple of weeks, everything can be found on the website at rayonsiddiqui.com. All right, so now let's get down to today's agenda. That being that, firstly, we're going to start off with a daily fun fact relating the programming language which we are studying to a fact which is pretty up to date to say the least. You'll see in a little bit. Then we're going to go on, just talk about our Hangman project, make sure we are all on the same page, go over our code from last week, and then we're going to discuss the code for this week and start coding it. We've been making a lot of good progress. Last week, if you remember, we started working with the words which the computer generated. And this week, we're going to be focusing more on that aspect of the gameplay. And yeah, let's get towards our first item on the agenda. And as a quick reminder, guys, before we get to that first item, remember all of our old Tech Bytes Python and JavaScript sessions can be found in the Schomburg Libraries YouTube channel on the Tech Bytes playlist. I know that we do have a couple of new people joining every now and then. So just to make sure we are all know where we can find resources, just go on YouTube's app or website, search up Schomburg Library, go to the playlist tab and find our Tech Bytes playlist, and you can watch away. We got hours and hours of content. And if you are not already in the Google Classroom, please be sure to privately message me or communicate through an email so that I can get you with that so you have access to all of our code. But yeah, so now let's get towards our fun fact of the day. That cool JavaScript fun fact of the day being that right now, the programming language of JavaScript is being used in order to show election results in real time. Whoa, okay, let's dissect this piece by piece. So I'm saying that we can use the programming language of JavaScript in order to show which of the two presidential candidates, whether that be Donald Trump from the Republican side or Joe Biden from the Democrat side, to show who is winning. Well, let's talk. How about before we actually get to how that's been happening, how about we talk about how that is even possible? Well, we talked about in the past how JavaScript can be related to and connected to databases. And using that idea of a database, JavaScript allows for real-time updates to occur. So for instance, if I go up on the internet right now, oops, if we open up our browser and just look up election results, we can see that currently Joe Biden holds a 248 to 214 electoral count vote. Now, you can tell that how are all of these votes being updated? Like, especially last night, this morning, a lot of the more votes have been sophisticated, aside from the major swing states, right? But like, state like a state like Illinois, our home state, right? You could pretty much tell last night that the votes were coming in pretty fast, and you could tell that Illinois was going to go blue. Now, we all had a pretty good idea because Illinois not only is it a historically Democrat state, but also the way those updates were able to come through to us on this website, which is being powered through Associated Press, is through JavaScript. You see, these numbers, it's not like somebody in Illinois in an election polling place is calling the team at Google saying, hey, can you add one more vote for Joe Biden? Okay, and the person at Google goes, okay, one more added. And then immediately gets another call. Hey, can you add one more vote for Joe Biden? If we think about that in a logical sense, that would take an enormous time. And who knows how many 10 times more time than it's already taken, right, for us to find out who the winner is. However, with the skill of programming, and more specifically with the language of JavaScript, and utilizing some frameworks like Node.js, which we have talked about in the past as well, all of the election polling places, so say we're talking about Cook County and DuPage County, all of the election polling places are essentially entering their data into some type of, you could call it a spreadsheet or some type of website where all that data is then going to get accumulated. AKA, all that data is being combined, thousands and thousands. If you take a look right now, how many, we got over 5 million total votes have been cast in the state of Illinois. And that's only at 88%. So think about all of that data amount of who has voted for who. And there are so many other officials being elected for as well. You know, we got some Senate races going on. We got some House representative races going on as well. And not to mention some local, you know, we have, if you're in the 8th district of Illinois, you know that our congressman is Mr. Raja Krishnamurthy. He has been running as well. And in order for us to see who is winning and get those real-time results the fastest way, that is able to be done through JavaScript. Now, you might be thinking that I'm bringing up this idea about data and how all this data is being collected and combined in order for us to get results. And you're probably thinking, hey, haven't I mentioned that whenever we have lots of data, we should use Python? Well, you're right. And this is a pretty unique and common circumstance in the same sense, because in this case, not only are we being updated with real-time data, so that part is being done with the JavaScript. However, if we think about all those calculations, you probably, maybe you and your parents, your siblings, you've looked at some predictions. You know, before last night, before 6 p.m., the results started coming in. There were a bunch, hundreds, probably even thousands of different forecasts of predictions of who could win and in what states. You know, a lot of people like to make predictions. Maybe even you made one. And a lot of the ways which those predictions are able to be made is through machine learning models in the language of Python. Now, if you're interested in learning more about those models and how they're created, I would definitely recommend you check out our Hack Central program, which is going to be happening next Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. But that happens the second Tuesday of every month. But otherwise, guys, this idea is that with JavaScript and Python here, we are seeing sort of a combination. And with that combination, we're being relayed a lot of important information, not to mention. And just the main idea is that with JavaScript, we're getting that real-time data, seeing who is winning the race in which states and in a collective manner, right? And then in Python, Python is all that, the language which is doing all the background work, doing all the calculations, making the predictions for us, and making some predictions still right now, looking at some states which haven't been called, like Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, and Nevada. So we for sure got a tight race, regardless of whoever you believe in, guys. It's pretty cool to see once again how the language and the stuff which we are learning about in our JavaScript and our Intro to Programming course has a pretty near and dear impact. Definitely worth sharing if you got siblings or parents that, hey, what I've been learning through this program is actually relatable to something which is happening literally right now. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Alrighty, so now let's shift on over, guys, to our project, which we have been working on for the past 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, that being our Hangman project. Remember, guys, the idea is a pretty basic idea, that being that Hangman is a guessing the word game, and essentially I, as the user, am going to input letters anywhere from A through Z, and then somebody else, in this case the computer, has generated a random word which we have selected through an array. And whatever that word may be, like maybe the word is soccer, I have to guess that letter in a certain number of tries. And remember, guys, the core concepts which we are covering through this project are variables, functions, loops, parameters, if-else, logic statements, and today something which we're going to be getting down into more particularly, that being substringing. That idea of being able to extract a certain letter from a word in order to perform some manipulation, maybe perform a logic check, maybe use an if-else statement. And today, that's going to be the main focus of ours. And before we get to what we're doing today, guys, let's go over, if you were not here last week, the code from last week. And that code being, guys, that last week we essentially got the right number of spaces which pertain to a word to appear. So say the computer chose a random word of the word, like the word cat, right? Well, there's three letters in the word cat, meaning there should be 3 separate blank spaces appear to us before the game starts. And similarly, if you have like the word, say, a basketball, then we should have 10 different spaces, aka underscores, displayed to us. And that was something which we got working last week. So once I open the code up in a little bit, we'll be able to see how when I hit the run button, we get to see how many letters our word has and how many letters we will be guessing. And then, guys, transitioning to this week. This week we'll be working on something which requires a bit more logic. Just a quick warning: this is going to be a bit more of an advanced concept today, involving substringing, but nothing which we cannot tackle. And essentially, the main idea is that we're going to be allowing the user to guess a letter and see if the letter they guessed matches any of the letters which the computer has. So, say we have the word basketball, right? I'm going to be entering, say I input the letter A. Well, we should be able to see that second underscore, aka that second blank space, fill up with the letter A. And in order to achieve that concept, we're going to be using substringing a bunch today, looking at how we can extract certain letters from certain words and performing some comparisons. So without any further ado, guys, once again, what I mentioned, the way we're going to be going over of how we're going to show those word spaces is using the concept of substringing plus for loops as well a lot today. And if there are any matches, then the user can see if they are correct. Otherwise, we'll just tell them, hey, you were wrong. You got X number more of turns to go before the game ends. So, guys, without any further ado, how about we open up our online coding website and get towards our project? Remember, guys, if you guys do not already have the link to our fiddle, it can always be found on the Google Drive, the Google Classroom in our classwork tab. But if not, I will be dropping it shortly in a couple of quick seconds in our Zoom chat as well. Once again, if you do not already have our Google Classroom code, please speak up in the chat. You could privately message me or through the chat, whatever you'd like. Let me know so that you have access to all of the code and the resources we utilize each week. There it is in the chat if you do not already have the link. We'll give a couple of minutes to make sure everybody's on the website, and we'll get started shortly. For sure, yep. I will get you the code right away. All right, Samrita, here is the code. I'll project it on the screen. Pretty simple. Just need a Google account. You could probably use your school account and just add another classroom. I think that'd be the easiest. Or you could just use a personal account, whatever you feel best. No problem. All right. And just as a quick, if you want to know how to get there, hit the classwork tab, go towards our JavaScript materials, and you can just go to the latest weeks tab and click that link, and that should take you to our code for the week. Once everybody's on there, let me know and we'll get started. All right, just a couple more moments. All righty. So guys, as a quick reminder, this is what we did do last week. So if I hit the run button, we can see that the computer is displaying to us the corresponding blank spaces for the word football. So the word football has 8 letters. Therefore, I do see 8 different spaces in a nice format. Look at how clean that looks, right? So last week we did also finish off a lot more with our HTML. We got it formatted. I can even input letters now into a text field in order to guess a letter. So that is nice as well. And this week we're going to be working with the idea of comparing the letter which I as a user input and seeing if it matches with any of the letters in our word. So just to make sure that we understand, say I have the word, I'm guessing, how about we do, we'll we'll do soccer, right? Or how about we can do football. So say the word is football, right? This is the computer's word. So the computer's word, which we are trying to guess, is football. And I, as the user, every round have one chance to input a letter. So say my letter, which I input, is the letter A. Well, the letter A is obviously, we can tell in the word football, but how are we going to perform that comparison with the computer? Well, we're going to use the idea of substringing and comparing this letter to every single letter inside of our word. So we're going to be substringing the first letter, substringing the second letter, substringing the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh, and the eighth. And essentially, whenever we see if a letter has matched, then we know to update that blank space with the letter. Because, like in real life, if I guess a letter correctly for the word I'm guessing at, the person who's facilitating the game, they should do me the courtesy of erasing the underscore and putting the right letter so I know I'm on track, right? And today it's going to be a similar idea. And say we're comparing the letter A and F. Well, A does not equal F, right? They're two separate letters. Then nothing's going to happen. That blank space still stays there. However, if we are comparing the letter A and A, what we should see is, say we have those 8 blank spaces, right, for the word football. We should see, here we go. Those 8 spaces, that blank space for the letter A should change to the actual letter A. So that is something which we'll be focusing on today. And the main idea is using our handy dandy tool of substringing. So how about we actually start putting that into some code? All right. So guys, a lot of our code this week is not going to be stuff behind the scenes. You know, last week we worked a lot with doing stuff before the game. That's the name of our function, consequently. This week, we're going to be working with when the user is going to enter their letter. So what I'm going to do is, just to make sure that the user has already correctly inputted a letter, I'm just going to print out the user's letter guess. This piece of code should already be there. This is something we did in our first week, extracting the user input from the text field. Hit run. I'm just going to type in a letter A. I should see my log print out the letter A. There we go. You don't have to do that. I'll just making sure that our code is working correctly. And now from here, we start. So firstly, guys, we have to make sure that we are keeping track of all the letters which the user has already guessed. So what I'm going to do is firstly create a global variable called user guessed user. How about we do get user guessed letters? And set that equal to a pair of empty quotes. And now the purpose of this string variable is to hold all the letters which the user has inputted. So how are we going to do that? Well, if you're thinking like what I'm thinking, that means that we have to essentially keep on adding and combining the string. So what I'm going to do is do our user guessed letters is going to equal the user guessed letters from beforehand plus the user's current letter guess. Remember, your variable names can be whatever. The main idea is that they're holding a value for us here. Add a little comment so we all know if you ever get lost, or somebody who is not watching our live stream can look at later. And also, guys, since we are working with this, something which we can do with this idea of guess letters, usually when we play the game Hangman, we can see, right? Like say I put the letter A, but the letter A is not part of the word. The person usually writes the letter A and then draws a stick figure. Well, although we're not doing the stick figure part, how about we try to do something in which the user can see what letters they have already guessed? So in order to do that, I'm going to have to create a new tag in our HTML. So I'm going to go, how about we just, actually we can do is just copy this word display, paste one below it, and I'm just going to change the ID to previous letter. We can hit it to guess letters. How about that? That makes more sense. Make sure that is appearing. There we go. It's right there. And I'm going to change it to an H5 tag just to make it a bit less bolded. So what I'm going to do now is, in order to show all the letters the user's already guessed, that really long line of code, if you guessed it. So document dot get element by ID, opening close parentheses. Oh, add those quotation marks. Input your paste your name of your ID, and then dot inner HTML equals, and we can say something like used letters, and then add a colon, and then we can just do plus user guessed letters. And remember, this is the variable which is holding the previously guessed letters. Give everybody a minute to catch up. All right, now, so guys, if I hit run, we can see, so if I do the letter A, although we're not going to have that logic working right now, we can see that, hey, we can see what letters we've guessed. So I guessed the letter A, I've guessed the letter P now, guessed the letter C. And although the formatting is a bit weird right now, we can eventually get to the point where we can separate it out, add some commas in the middle, make it look a bit more nicer. However, for now, it does the job for us, lets us know what letters we have already guessed. Alrighty, so now let's move on towards the actual nitty-gritty for today, that being comparing to see if the user has guessed a correct letter. So now this is where some of the logic comes in, guys, and the for loops come in as well. So guys, firstly what I'm going to do is create a for loop, say for, we can say var x equals 0, x is less than. Now what condition, how many times will this for loop be running? Well, this for loop is going to be running however many times, however many letters long our word is. So however long our computer word is. So var x is going to be less than computer word dot length, and then increment x by 1. Add those opening close squiggly parentheses like such. And now, guys, what I'm going to do is create a separate variable called correct guess, and set that equal to false. This is going to be a local variable inside of the for loop, and you'll see why this will be used in a quick moment, but this is going to be telling us to see if the user's inputted a correct letter. Then we're going to do some manipulation of our strings. All right, now we have one for loop which is looping over each of the letters in our word. So if I go through in console.log letter, we should be able to see all of the letters of which the computer is printing out. So if I substring each letter out, so substring add x, and if I hit run, then if I hit a letter, there we go. We go to 22. We can see all of the letters. So baseball, it looks like the word is baseball, right? So all the letters comprised in baseball, right? All right, so now is going to come a bit of a more advanced thing. We're going to be using a for loop inside of a for loop. Now, why are we going to be doing that? Wait. So I'm saying that in order for us to compare the computer's letters against the user's letters, we're going to have to run 2 for loops. Well, let's think about why we have to do that. So if I open up the whiteboard real quick. So right now we have our one for loop. This for loop, I'm just going to write some pseudocode right here, is running the length of computer word. So say the computer's word off to the right, I'll say computer word is, we'll do, again, football, right? So football is 8 letters long, meaning this for loop will execute 8 times. Now, say the user inputs the letter A. So say if I'm as the user inputs letter A. Well, one for loop would be okay if we're only checking. So the idea is that we're going to check this letter A against each and every letter. So essentially, we're going to be comparing a bunch. So we're going to compare A to F, A to the letter O, A to the letter T. Oh, there's one more O actually. A to the letter T, A to the letter B, A to the letter A to the letter L, and once more A to the letter L. Now, where am I coming up with all those statements? Well, if you look to the right, that spells out the word football. And essentially, we're comparing the letter which the user inputted to every single letter in the word football. And the reason is because we need to check if the letter we entered is valid. But although we can use one for loop for now, the problem comes in once we have multiple letters. So say I've inputted the letters A, B, and C. Well, when I'm checking the word and looping over that word to see if the user's inputted any correct letters, one for loop is not going to do the job because this string of inputted letters is gonna have more letters and more, and one for loop cannot do the job. However, with us having two for loops, we can compare the letter A to all the letters in the word football, the letter B to all the letters in the word football, the letter C to all the letters in the word football, and so on. So the way we're going to accomplish that is writing one more for loop. And this idea of writing a for loop inside of a for loop is referred to as a nested for loop. There's some terminology right there. So I'm going to do is do var. We can call our second variable y. And now y is going to be less than the length of our user guessed letters. So user guessed letters dot length, and then increment y by 1. So y plus plus again. Get everybody even to catch up. And guys, as always, when I'm going through this, if any part does not make sense, you're confused at all, don't feel free, you guys, to say something, speak out. Always ready to explain anything. All right, and now guys, we're gonna get down to the actual logic statement. So now we have the idea of we're looping over all the letters in the computer's word and all the letters which we as the user have guessed. But now we have to actually make some comparisons, and in order to do that, does anybody have any idea of what coding technique we're gonna be using? Are we gonna be using some logic statements, some if else? What's the predicted guess right here? Anybody have an idea? Yup, Suhas is 100% correct. We're going to be using some if-else statements, but more specifically, we're going to also be using some substringing in these if-else statements. Because if you think about it, for us to compare one letter to all the letters inside of a word, we have to substring each individual letter inside of the computer's word. So the way in which we're going to do that, guys, do if. We're going to substring firstly our user's guessed letter. So user guessed letters dot substring at the y index. Now, if I were to just do substringing from y, that would get me every letter, say, at the first position onward. But we're just trying to compare one singular letter at a time. So the way we make sure we can do that is do y and then y plus 1. That's the range we are looking at. This way, we're only looking at one letter and seeing if that letter at the user's previously guessed letters is equal to any of the letters inside of the computer's word. So same thing, computer word dot substring x and then x plus 1. Looking at that range and add those open and close squiggly marks, right? Brackets like such. So remember, the reason why we are substringing is that, say I have that word of football still, right? So if I still have football and I input the letter A as a user, substringing is going to allow me to dissect and look at every scenario. I can compare the A to the F, compare the A to the O, compare to the A to the O again, A to the T, all those letters, right? Alrighty, and now what we can do is if any of the letters match, we can change our Boolean variable to true. So if there's a correct guess, yes, there is. Set that equal to true. And also, now we need to think about what letter which the user guessed correctly. We need to essentially somehow store that in some type of variable. So what I'm going to do is we can make a global variable if you'd like. Sure, we can do var correct letter guessed. Set that equal to some blank quotation marks for now. Something like that. And now what I'm going to do is do the correct letter guessed variable is going to hold the correct letter, which the user guessed. So say I guess the letter A in the word football. We know that the letter A should be changing, and we should see it filled up in the underscore, and it should be the third to last letter. So what I'm going to do is the correct letter guessed is going to equal our user guessed letters dot substring from that Y to the Y plus 1 position. This ensuring that we're extracting the right letter. All right. Give everybody a minute to catch up. That's a lot of code we've been doing. All right now. So if I hit run, nothing's really going to happen, guys, because we are not really manipulating our HTML. And the part to do that is going to come now. So what I'm going to do is go outside of the scope of my second for loop. So I'm before the second squiggly bracket. So I'm inside of the big for loop, the first for loop, which is iterating, aka looping over all the letters of the computer's word. And inside of here now, we're gonna have to use some more if else statements. Seems a lot, right? So what I'm gonna do is do if the user guessed correctly. This is gonna tell me that we have to change our underscores to the letter the user guessed correctly. So say going back to that football word, right? The third to last letter, if I guess the letter A, should change to the letter A. It shouldn't be in blank space anymore. So if it is a correct guess, we know whatever you called your whole display variable, that I'm going to set whole display is going to equal whole display still plus add a little like a space so that formatting looks nice, and then the correct letter guessed by the user, referring to this variable right here, like such. And then guys, if the user did not make a correct guess, then we can use else and just set our display, whole display is going to equal our display plus just a blank space little and then an underscore mark. This representing that, say I guess the letter A, there's for sure other letters in the word football, right? So those other letters besides the letter A are still going to have that underscore representing a blank space. Oh, and do not forget a plus sign after that blank space, like such. Alrighty, so now guys, if I hit the run button, let's take a look at what word we are dealing with. We are dealing with the word hockey. So if I enter the letter H, we should see that first position turn to an H. And if I submit, nope, if I hit the letter H, oh, that's right. We are not manipulating our HTML. So although we're changing the value of our variable, we're not really going back and using the DOM. Remember the document object model? So that is something which we have to do certainly. So I'm going to do is go outside of the scope of my for loop. And then down here, I'm going to do document dot get element by ID. Add those parentheses, add the quotation marks, whatever you called your word display. Mine is literally called word display. Paste that in, and then dot inner HTML equals, and whatever your whole display variable, your variable holding all the letters is, paste that in like such. And now, guys, if I hit the run button, and it looks like what word? I believe we are dealing with a basket. Yeah, basketball right there. So if I hit the letter, how about we enter the letter B, right? We should see that first base change. And voila, we do see that first position change. Now, you might be noticing, whoa, 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 why are there so many underscores? Well, that's a bunch more than we expected, right? Well, the reason is because if I enter the letter A, we're going to see a bunch more. And does anybody have any idea why do we think the word our display variable is keep on holding this many letters and underscores? What can we do in order to make sure that this doesn't happen? Any guess? Anybody? Yep. So Suhas, definitely, that's the right idea. So it's showing the letter again. And the reason why that's happening is because our whole display variable is never being reset. We're never clearing our display variable. So that's something which we have to make sure we do. And we have to do that every time we run our submit letter function. So the first thing which I'm going to do is whenever this function is called, I'm going to reset our display to empty quotes because at that point, it should be representing nothing. So just like that, and now, guys, if I hit run, enter the letter, what word are we dealing with? Let's take a look. Basketball still looks like. So if I enter the letter B, voila. So nice and cleanly formatted. We saw that the letter which we guessed was correctly replaced, that underscore. If I enter the letter A now, the letter S, I mean, some magic, right? Looks amazing. Oh, looks like our console just refreshed. So we got the word baseball now. Enter letter B. There we go. Enter A. We can see that our letters which we're entering are taking the right position and filling the right space, which is awesome. As always, guys, if you ever got lost in this, I will be posting this code link. We did a bunch of coding today on our Google Classroom, so that will be found in the next about 10 minutes after we end. But that was today's main idea. And next week, we'll be starting to get towards what happens when the user has guessed all of the letters. What happens when the user has guessed too many letters? What if they've exceeded the number of guesses they're allowed? And more stuff like that. So we'll be continuing to work on our Hangman. As always, guys, hope you guys had a great time today. Learned something awesome with that cool fun fact of the day. For sure, stay updated. Watch what's been going down with our election. Always a good idea to get started and stay informed. You know, as a young citizen, a great idea, which I would definitely recommend. Going to be an interesting couple of days to say the least. But hopefully, you guys enjoyed working on the Hangman project. We're seeing a lot of progress being made. And if hopefully I might be seeing you this Friday with our teen trivia program. We'll be having a lot of fun there, kicking off our weekend at 3 p.m. But if not, guys, have a great weekend, a great upcoming week. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys.